Hi, welcome to Community Empowerment. I'm Roberta Martin, your host. Today with me in the studio is Pastor Akron. And Pastor Akron is a pastor here in the Twin Cities. Today I really want to talk about the economic life here in Minnesota. What does the economic life look like here in Minnesota? And the reason you may be wondering why am I trying to talk about the economic life of Minnesota? Recently, we just voted our leaders into power. We voted House representatives, our mayors, we voted our city council leaders, we voted even our judges into power. And the reason is that work has just begun. And if work has just begun, then let's take a critical look at how the economic life of Minnesota look like. You know, I came across the data recently, and the data shows that we have very few minorities representing our economic system. So I'm talking about the businesses and the companies that Minnesota owns. Most of the people that are, engaged in these businesses are not minorities. They are different people. And I don't want to talk about race issue here, but very few of the people of color represent this particular business. So the question is, what is the reason behind that? And I think this is the reason why we are sitting here today. I brought with me and Pastor Akron, Robert Akron, of a church here in the Twin City. Pastor, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Pastor, we just voted our leaders into power, and work has just begun. But I just was wondering if we can really take a critical look at the economic health of what is going on in our Twin Cities. The data I come across says that very few, minorities are engaged in businesses. You're a pastor of a church. You've been teaching in churches for so long. What is your opinion about this situation?
Well, there are a couple of things one could talk about.
Sure.
One, the nature of business itself. The goals of business.
Okay.
The rules of engagement when it comes to business. And what the expectations of the individual are.
Right.
So, you take a typical minority and you look at the data available. Yes, it is true that there are quite a few minorities owning their own businesses.
Okay.
Here in Minnesota. And the question becomes, what makes it so? Why is it so? And being a pastor, I am of the opinion that the church has a lot to offer.
Okay.
And it does seem as if historically and traditionally, the church has mostly shied away from getting people to see that business is part of life. Business, therefore, should concern the church because, after all, the members live in the community and their lives involve business.
Right.
And if the church is there to minister to the spiritual, mental, and the physical needs of the individual, the church cannot restrict itself to just the spiritual.
Okay.
The church also has to deal with the physical and the mental. So one could readily see, if we are talking of minorities, we are talking of blacks, we are talking of Asians, we are talking of Hispanics.
Right. Women. Right.
And the picture begins to look interesting.
Okay.
I brought with me the statistics from the U.S. Census Bureau.
Wow, that would be very interesting to know.
Some of the things they've gathered.
Okay.
Actually, the latest info they have dates all the way back to 2007. Apparently, they haven't really computed something substantial or substantive since 2007 when it comes to business.
Okay.
But you look at the figures out there, it gives the population of Minnesota and then the population of the U.S.
Okay.
And currently, which will be the year 2013, it says Minnesota has a population of 5,420,350, which is the estimate, 2013.
Okay. That's a few years back.
That almost just about a year back.
Right.
And of that, this is the breakdown. Blacks or African Americans make up 5.7% of the population in Minnesota,
Okay.
but they make up 13.2% of the population of the U.S. Then you have American Indian and Alaska Natives. They make up 1.3, but 1.2 in the nation. Then Asians alone make up 4.5, but 5.3 nationally.
Okay.
Then you come to the business reality, the data on business. It says private non-farm establishments, you have only 145,000 of them, 1,775, which is businesses that have offices,
Okay.
physical offices.
Okay.
But in terms of the number of firms, which includes businesses that have physical addresses,
Okay.
that means they have
They
physical
operate in-
locations.
Yes.
Which is to say, most of the businesses out there are being operated from, let's say, the people's homes.
Okay. So they have
Not-
some business going on, but it's
Yes.
not, we can say it's not registered then.
It's registered, but
Okay.
you know, the business address is not different from the residential address,
So then the businesses are home.
home-based
based.
businesses.
Okay.
When you look at that, you have 2 million, wait a minute, business, if I say private non-farm employees, you have 2,480,643.
Okay.
But in terms of the total number of firms since 2007, you have 496,657.
Okay. So Pastor,
Of that,
let's break it down to, you know, the simplest man that may be watching us understanding. With all these figures, do you think that, so do we have more? Because if 5% of the people who are minorities, okay, are minorities, then that, and then we have, does it say we have about 2% out of the 5? So then if the data is true, then the question is, do we have more minorities in businesses or less minorities?
interestingly, for example, the racial breakdowns, you have of the 496,000
Okay.
businesses in Minnesota, I mean, firms in Minnesota, blacks own only 2.5%,
Okay.
but they make up 5.7% of
The population.
Minnesota's population.
Okay.
Then you have Asians, they own 2.3%, but they make up 4.7% of the population.
Very interesting.
Which is to say, most of the businesses, therefore, are non-minority owned.
I see.
You get me? Minorities owned businesses come up to just maybe about 10, 11%. So, truly speaking, minorities are underrepresented
I'm not represented.
on the business front.
Okay, so let's try to figure out the reason behind that.
Okay.
What could be the reason behind? Is it that we are not trying to get engaged into businesses, or is it that the church is failing to, you know, do its job, or the government, or, you know, our leaders, or ourselves? What could be the reason? Because we got to figure out a solution to this, because everybody's saying bring businesses to Minnesota, bring businesses to Minnesota. But the question is, what are you doing?
Yes.
I think we all have a part to play, but what is it?
That is true of course, the minority population is made up of not only blacks, but you have people who have come from outside.
Okay.
So you have an issue of somebody who has come from outside first having to deal with the reality of his existence in America.
Okay.
And then figuring how to master the system, let alone establish a business.
I see.
It takes quite some time.
So we are looking at geographical change. They
Yes.
came from a different perspective, a different country or a
Yeah.
different continent, if
Okay.
I may use that.
Okay.
And then now they are here, and this is a big change.
Yeah.
So you can't just get up and start getting into business,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Is that am I
That is one.
okay?
I mean, for most of the people where we've come from, you just could get up and just about do anything. But the U.S. is a land governed by laws.
By law. In other words, where we are coming from, in those most West African countries, perhaps, it's a little bit lawless, right?
Not lawless as such, but the laws are a bit
Advanced as compared
relaxed. The enforcement
to. Okay,
is not as serious
right,
as you would find here. You come here, this is the land of opportunity,
right.
but you also have to play by the rules.
You have
and
to
it
play by
takes
the rules.
some time for the individual to
Get accustomed.
accustomed,
Am I
figure out,
correct?
as I said, figure out the very reality of existence for you, and then you begin to understand the American system. Then you figure out what are the opportunities out there that I could take advantage of. It takes some time.
Okay.
You getting me? It
Right.
takes some time. And that is one. The
That's very
other
interesting.
could be maybe lack of drive,
Okay,
maybe lack of understanding by way of education of the U.S. system. And that is where some of us feel, and I in particular feel, the church has a lot to offer.
you know, that's quite interesting, that last statement. Let's
Okay.
journey in that a little bit.
Okay.
When you say that, let's back up. First of all, let's back up to the geographical change, how
Okay.
people get adjusted into. You came from somewhere like I did.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people are looking, perhaps listening right now and saying, you know, I have the business idea, I have the money, I want to get into it, but I really don't know the system. You know, let's talk a little bit about that, and then let's go back to, you know, the aspect of the church
Okay.
and its involvement in that, and why the church has some lapses in there all
Okay.
these years.
Okay. Well, to talk of the geography, you realize that, I mean, to speak of our times, our contemporary times, you realize that you need quite a bit of understanding, not necessarily advanced education. It doesn't hurt if you have it,
Right.
but you need to have some amount of business sense to own, operate a business and make it successful. So that is one thing we have to deal with. So let's give ourselves that most people will come here and it will take them maybe 2-3 years to figure out how to deal with the system as it is, find an economic rhythm, then move to the next phase of owning
Your
the
business.
economic system he operates in. So that again takes some time. And the US, because it operates on the proper functioning of the law,
Right.
sometimes adjusting to it could pose a little problem. Mind you, a lot of people come here not with green cards, not with what it takes to start running from day one when
Right.
they land here.
Right. Oh.
So you have a situation, people come here, maybe
Again.
on visas, and the visa expires,
Right.
and they choose not to go back. So you have a situation where the individual is dealing with the law as it is.
Right.
Now, how do you go and register a business?
When you are not legally established or resident.
So these are some of the reasons you
Okay.
get me.
Right.
You could own a business. For example, you could have owned a business in where I'm coming from, Ghana.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that could readily translate into owning a business in America.
Absolutely. Right.
You getting me?
Right.
Yes, business is business, but the rules of engagement may be different from one geography to another geography.
Right.
So that's one of the issues we have to deal with. Now you have a situation where we are dealing more the U.S., I mean our contemporary life is more of knowledge-based economy.
Right. Absolutely.
How do you deal with that? How do you master it? You getting me? And as I said, the church has a lot to play.
Let's talk about that. And then let's talk about the reason why the church have some lapses all over these years. The church have not, I'm very young. Well, not young, but you know, I don't know much about church history. Okay. I know a little bit about church history, but the little I know that, you know, churches have not done a good job in educating its, you know, congregation about business things. I know about, they talk a lot about prayer and fasting, you know, and communion and, you know, baptism and all that. But what about getting into government and get involved, or getting into businesses and get involved? I just recently started looking at a few churches, but not a lot. But I think the question I want to know is, why is it that it wasn't there? Why is it that the leaders in the churches, the pastors and all those leaders in churches refuse to do that? And can we now think about how can we do that?
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't say they refused to do that.
Okay.
But was there a motivation? Historically, the church has always been seen as a spiritual entity. Therefore, the church's main role has been taught to be ministering to the spiritual needs of the individual. But if one takes a little bit of time to really look at the Gospels, especially the things Jesus said, you realize that they go beyond just the spiritual. I'll give you two practical examples.
Sure.
Jesus, in the parable of the talent, in Matthew chapter 25, from verse 18, I believe.
You want to read? Should we read?
Yeah,
we can read that.
You can. He goes to say that a master who was about to embark on a journey,
right,
gave out his goods to his servants that he had called. The Bible uses the adjective his own servants. And he gave them his goods, and he also gave them talents.
Okay.
The word goods is a commercial thing.
Right.
That actually makes us to understand that this master was a merchant.
Okay.
The classic definition from the legal standpoint of who a merchant is somebody who deals in a particular kind of goods or has expert knowledge in that kind of goods. So immediately, one's antenna should go up. You just cannot be a merchant without some serious knowledge.
Right.
You must understand the goods you are dealing with. You must understand the market that goods actually are sold in. You must understand the dynamics of the market, the demand and the supply, the consumers, all the consumer sentiments, the seasons, the changes. One must understand those things to be a merchant. But the Bible said he called them and then he delivered unto them. And this is the interesting thing. The Bible said the kingdom, this the way Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like
Unto,
Whoa.
right.
That takes us to a different territory. That is the use of what we call metaphoric language. And when you come to the use of metaphoric language, one must understand that there are three things involved. The thing or the concept being discussed, and the thing it is being compared to. The thing being discussed or the concept is what we call the tenor or the subject. And then the thing it is compared to is what we call the vehicle. The two together create the third element we call dimensions. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is like, in literature we'll call it a simile, which is actually metaphoric language.
Right.
So Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is like a man who, when he knew he was going on a journey for a long time, called his servants and then gave them his goods, and then he gave them talents. And he based everything on their abilities. He just didn't give out to just anybody. First, it was qualified, his own servants, which means he knew them and he knew their abilities. Abilities. So don't just go into business without having abilities. That's one of the interesting things. The second thing he did was that he left. What does that tell us? The Bible makes us to understand when he came back, he asked for accounting. So the whole idea is that the master actually did this. He expected continuity. In his absence, the business must function. Not only function, it must be profitable. That's Jesus. Nobody could be more spiritual than Jesus. But this is Jesus saying, the kingdom of heaven is like this. The kingdom of heaven, therefore, is about results.
So then that means that the church then must play that role.
Yes.
In tending the congregation, teaching them what it means to have some goods. And before even you have the goods, that you know you have the ability to engage into becoming like a merchant.
Yes.
And then what? Your talent. How does that link together? Can you?
Yes, let's put it this way.
Sure.
Not everybody can be
a
businessman.
Okay. You must have the ability.
Yes. You must have the ability. Ability is not enough. There must be drive. There must be motivation.
So could that be one of the reasons why we have few people representing?
Possibly, yes.
The drive is not there.
Yeah.
They realize the ability is not there. And maybe the church is not even playing its role in telling them how important that Jesus even talked about this.
That is true. I mean, as I said, historically, and I'm being emphatic on that, historically, the church has always been seen as just a spiritual entity. You go there on Sunday for your spiritual man to be renewed,
right,
to be ministered to. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you are out there in the world. You get me?
Right.
The question, therefore, is, what happens to that individual when he leaves the four corners of that church? We are not just spiritual beings. We also have souls, and we have bodies. We live in a physical realm with its challenges, with its demands, and with its expectations. Of course, that also calls for certain abilities. So the church cannot only restrict or confine itself to ministering to only the spiritual needs of the individual. You get me? The church has a duty to start teaching the total gospel. We are to minister to the whole man, not just the spirit.
So let's talk about some things that you think that the church can teach its congregation so we can solve this problem we are sitting here talking about today.
Okay. I mean, we go back to the same text.
Yes.
The Bible said, one, the person with 5, went and traded. What an interesting concept. He went, which means he changed his location.
Right.
And went there and took risks.
Business is risk.
Yes. He traded. And then he gained. The trading came before the gaining. But let's not forget, the prospect of losing everything he had was also there. But that's what business is about. The second person also did the same thing. And both of them got results. The third, the Bible said, he went and dug a hole and put the talent there. Which is to say, he didn't put himself out there to trade. To trade, which is to say, what actually adds value to the talent is the ability to put yourself out there, take the necessary risks, have the heartache, have the happiness, have the downtimes, the up times of what business entails. It is part of the deal. You don't go there and expect to win every day.
Right.
You must be able to deal with certain realities. You may fall down, you will rise. That is what trading is about. So we cannot expect, as a church, we cannot expect the people to just come to church and then we leave them, not telling them these are the realities there. Let's equip them. That's what the Bible, that's exactly what Jesus was saying when he said the kingdom of heaven is like. He expected results. When the man came, there is this is the time of reckoning. We must understand there is accounting. Whatever you are given, there will be a day of accounting. There will be a day of accounting. The day of reckoning will come for everybody. And, of course, we earn our living by trading skills in exchange for something, whether we like it or not. Everybody, therefore, one way or the other, is involved in some business. And they say, if you know better, you act better. Right. When the church actually takes it upon itself to really teach, then the person becomes not just a passive participant in the economy, but becomes a very conscious and therefore a very active and learned one. You getting me?
Right.
These are the things one has to look for. Let's look at the other thing. You ask, why are we absent? Why are minorities absent there?
Sure.
Well, interestingly, in Matthew chapter 10, Jesus said, I am sending you as sheep in the midst of wolves.
Right.
Be therefore wise as serpents and harmless as the dove. Who are the wolves here? The people who have entrenched themselves in that arena.
Okay.
If you are going to operate in that arena, you don't go like a dumb fool. You go with some serious knowledge.
Right.
You getting me?
Right.
How then do you do that? You need wisdom. And what is wisdom? Wisdom is the highest form of knowledge. You can't go there without the chops you need to function and function effectively there.
So then that means that in other words, we are talking about education here.
You need education.
We need education.
Not necessarily formal, being within the 4 walls of a university, but be a lifelong learner. Be observant. Understand the rules of that particular industry you want to be a participant in. And
So
unfortunately,
in other words, if I want to be a construction person, I must get into the scene to really study the rules of engagement
yes, ma'am.
within the construction
Yes,
arena.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Because the Bible, I mean, we quoted the parable of
scriptures.
the talent. The Bible said he called his own servants. He didn't go outside to call. That means the people were servants helping the man in his business of being a merchant. So they got to understand
The system.
the system the man operated. And when he felt they had arrived, he handed over the baton to them. You getting me?
Right.
That is where we are losing out. And if, as a pastor, what I would advocate, because you read the text carefully, little did they know it was the master who called them, not they literally harassing the master to give them his goods. It was the master who called them.
Okay. So
So, how does one learn, the minorities like us?
right.
How do we learn? I would say, whilst you are working wherever God puts you,
Right.
it is a learning environment. Give of your best
Right.
and learn. Because one day you expect to be promoted, your promotion is going to come based on performance. So learn it very well.
Right.
If God blesses you and you are able to strike out on your own, you wouldn't go in ignorance. You will go with knowledge. How did you acquire it? By serving under somebody. That's what the Bible. So there was a period of apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is a way of learning a skill or a trade.
Right.
So minorities, maybe the picture doesn't look too good now.
Right.
But if God has blessed you and you are working, see that environment as your training ground.
Training ground.
Let it be your university. Learn and learn well and give off your best
Right.
before
You can
you can actually serve your own needs.
and become an owner of a business.
That's
So
what
that
it
the
is.
key here then is to even become an owner of a business, not only necessarily having the skills, not only that, not only recognizing your talent, because you mentioned about talent, but also even before you own it, study under somebody.
Well, the point is, there are ways of acquiring knowledge. Somebody can go to school and acquire the same knowledge. Somebody becomes an apprentice under somebody and acquires that knowledge. Well, there are quite a few people out there who are just marvelous. They are so gifted, they come with all it takes, but they are very few. You getting me?
Right.
Very few. For most of us, we have to study in a formal institution or we study under somebody in a sort of apprentice system. Take advantage of it.
Right.
You getting me?
Right.
As long as you live, and God has made it possible for you to have an economic life, don't just be a worker. Be a motivated worker. Learn all you could. Because who knows, and I'm talking to Christians and minorities, who knows one day the opportunity might present itself to be transformed from just a worker to being an employer. And that transformation doesn't come on a silver platter.
You have to work at it. Okay, that's very interesting. I have gained a lot of knowledge in there. But how about we take a look at our government system too? Because we just talk about the role of the church. Now, we just recently went to the polls, elected our House representatives. You know, we're talking about Minnesota here. So we elected our House leaders in there. We elected our city council leaders, our mayors, and then, you know, the judges are not voted for. We just elect them, right? They have a part to play. What's your opinion on that? Because if we just put them into office, do we just put them into office just to put them into office, to have figures that we have such number of people in there, or we put them into office so that they can take a critical look of the health of the economy of Minnesota? And if they can see this data and see what is happening here, with all the part that the church have to play, I think the church can do it all. And that's why we have leaders in the system.
That is true. Well, they have a part to play. Maybe they could be a bit more charitable. They could go out of their way to mentor.
Mentorship, okay.
You get me? But that is not an obligation. The individual who wants to be there must have the drive, must want to be there.
So you're saying that, first of all, even before leadership could help you, you must have the drive to go.
Yes.
Okay.
You get me? This is the point. You are not likely to be discovered.
Right.
If you stay in your room.
Absolutely. Sure.
You get me?
I agree.
You need to be out there for somebody to recognize that, you know,
you're doing something.
You're doing something.
Right.
And somebody then could take an interest in you.
So didn't Scripture say that small beginnings are of God?
Of course.
So that you can start.
Isn't it interesting that we are not born as adults?
Quite interesting. That's
you
a very interesting
We are
statement.
not born as adults. We are born as babies. But I can guarantee you, if God is God and whatever we've read from the scripture and the Bible says he knows the beginning from the end, and he knows the end from the beginning. He told Jeremiah, before you were a clot of blood in your mother's womb, before I even formed you, I knew you, and I ordained you as a prophet. Which is to say, before Jeremiah was born, God knew him. And when he was born and he was just 1 hour old, God already was looking at him and seeing him as a prophet. So what am I saying? Whatever and whoever you are, now, it was present when you were just 1 hour old. But
so you have to discover it.
Discover it.
And how do you come to that place of discovery?
Put yourself out there.
Put yourself out there.
Put yourself out there. You getting me? We just quoted the parable of the talent.
Talent.
The talent worked when the man or the two men changed their locations. They left the safe comforts of their homes and went to the market and allowed the market forces to work, and they gained. On the other hand, the third man just went and put his talent in
the ground.
The talent therefore never had the chance
to grow.
So
he buried it.
Isn't it amazing? Jesus said, why didn't you give it to the men involved in exchange? And he used a term which in law might sound almost tortious, if not criminal. He said usury. Usury simply means charging an interest above the recommended rate. Jesus said, the man of fairness, he said, at least you should have gone. You knew all this about me, that I gather where I have not stored, and I reap where I have not sown. If you knew all this about me, why didn't you take what I gave you and give to somebody who will charge an exorbitant interest rate so that when I come, I will have profit? This is Jesus speaking. Now, you ask about politics. Let's move to I quoted Matthew chapter 10. Jesus said, I'm sending you as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. He goes on and he says, listen, you'll be brought. He said, first, beware of men. Interesting, Jesus. He said, I've given you power to cast out unclean spirits, cast out devils, raise the dead. Which is to say, I've given you power to operate as your own man in the spiritual realm. But when it came to man, he said, beware of men. Which is to say, you are going to compete with men. Your problem, therefore, may not necessarily be spiritual. You are going to deal with human beings.
So that's when you mentioned that we have a spirit, we live in a body, we have a soul.
So
we operate in all these three
the
dimensions.
The church, therefore, has to minister to the total man in all these areas. Now, what I'm interested in, Jesus said, listen, you'll be brought before their councils. You'll be brought before their synagogues. You'll be brought before governors. You'll be brought before kings. Mm-hmm. Why would Jesus use these terms? In the first place, council is a group of people. You getting me?
Right.
And they are pursuing an interest. The wolves out there know how to band together. You getting me?
Right.
But we are going there not united. And Jesus used an interesting analogy. I mean, he used the metaphoric language. We are sheep, fearful, not very, very clever, but we are trusting and we look up to our shepherd. But we are going to contend for mastery in that economic space with people who know how to band together, who are naturally more clever than us.
So he's talking about those who are already have started going into business, those rulers and governors and other things.
Yes.
The governors, the
leaders.
Governors,
don't forget, governors and kings, they run economic and political systems.
So,
which is to say, we, the children of God, the children of the church, our influence must be felt where the kings and the governors operate, which means our activities must actually attract their attention.
And then we must work together.
We must, that's what it is.
Right.
You getting me?
And right.
Very interesting, the way Jesus was looking at it.
But unfortunately, the church have just been marginalized, and we are not looking into government system, and we are not trying to get into the political system or the economic system. Actually, what Jesus was trying to say is, come in and work together with your councils and your leaders and your governors. Am I?
Yes, yes. You are on the right.
Because I'm listening.
Yeah, you're on the right track. I mean, this is the predicament. You get me? This is the predicament, and it's like whenever you put yourself out there,
opportunity will find you.
That's exactly I was going to say. You getting me? If you don't run the race, you are out of contention. If you don't participate, you have to run the race to even have the chance of winning the race.
Right.
If you don't participate in it, it is not within your reach.
Right.
So we must participate there. You getting me? The interesting thing, I'll keep going back to the talent.
Keep going back.
The man said, Master, you gave me 5 talents. I have gained 5 more. I have gained 5 more. And I gained the 5 because I traded with the 5. Now I have 10. This is the revelation. You see, let me use the... If marketing or business is about exchange of goods,
right?
You getting me? If I take oranges to the market, I don't expect to bring oranges back.
No.
If it is true exchange.
Right. You're supposed to bring
something else.
Right.
Now, this is what we have to understand. Let's say this represents my orange. I am interested in your banana.
Right.
I may start with just this orange. That's all I know. But once I go to the market, for me to get your banana, I must learn how much of your banana will get me, how much of my orange will get me your banana. You know what is happening? you are actually becoming an expert in two systems. You start out with orange. For you to get what you are looking for, you must compare their values. So you become an expert in banana too.
Now you know the two trades.
You know the two. So when those people, those two guys went out there and traded, not only did they increase their substance, the talent, but they also increased in knowledge. They could talk the language of, let's say, banana, and they could talk the language. You getting me? And if knowledge is power, you can understand how powerful. Isn't it amazing? The master said, you were faithful in few things. You were faithful when you were servants. Now I will make you rulers, from servants to rulers, over many things, not few things.
So before even a person becomes a leader of, like we have bosses.
Yeah.
They didn't just get up to become bosses.
That is what it is.
Someone had told me, a school principal was once a teacher.
Yes.
And the principal has learned the system of the schooling, and now he is the principal over the school.
Yes. Yes. You getting me? I mean, if you look at it critically, promotion should come with knowledge. And if we understand the God we serve as people of the church, we must understand one thing, that God is not going to promote you only for you to disgrace him. You can pray all you want, God promote me to become the manager. If you want that manager's position, you must possess the knowledge he possesses to function and function effectively there. Do you possess that?
One thing I realized when I came to the U.S. is whenever you go to apply for a job, the first thing they ask you, what's your experience?
Amen.
Do you have an experience? And experience, really, it's part of the pay scale. They say 2-3 years experience, you come in with maybe 1. And because you come, and you know what? The pay scale ranges from, let's say, $15 an hour to $30 an hour. Why is it such a big margin? It's because of the experiences in between. So the number of experience you have, then your pay scale raises up. But that means that presupposes that because you have a year or 2 or 3 or 4 experience, you have some sort of knowledge.
That is what
in that
is.
Particular.
That actually you can substitute the word knowledge for the word experience. This is the issue. Somebody will acquire that knowledge through formal education. Somebody may acquire it through apprenticeship. Somebody may acquire it as a result of doing that work over and over and over. It boils down to knowledge. So you are paid based on the amount of knowledge you have and how much of that knowledge you bring to bear
on the task
you are given.
Right.
You get me?
Right.
If the church doesn't start teaching these principles for minorities like us to understand that, yes, we may go to church or we won't, but if we don't have the knowledge, we will just be functioning in only one realm. We may be good, well equipped spiritually, but almost useless in the other aspects of life. So we will find ourselves in the lower ranks of the economic system.
So you did talk about knowledge for a while. You talk about learning not only in, the four corners of a university alone, but also just learning, being a life learner. I want us to just take a look at, our universities. What about, do you think they also have a part to play in helping our, people of minorities or
of
people
course.
of color?
Yes, of course.
Is it based on curriculums or programs in schools? Or sometimes you need, people go to school, like me, for instance. I went and did certain different courses because I just thought, I want to do this because the job market isn't maybe nursing, only to get to a certain part of the degree and realize that this is really not me.
Okay.
But maybe if I had someone, some tutor, a mentor or somebody that was there to tell me, here's how you go about things. What is your talent? I think you have to discover first of all what your talent is.
Okay.
Channel your direction through that area. If your interest is in business, then go into the direction.
Okay.
Rather than looking at the area and saying, Minnesota is becoming a very healthcare thing, and I want to just go into nursing. But maybe that is not you. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's the educational system have a role. And how is it? How can that function, or how does that function?
First, we must understand education is about something.
Right.
Education literally is about taking somebody raw and polishing him. Taking an ordinary data and turning it into information, and being taught how to do likewise. Take an ordinary thing and create something extraordinary with it.
Right.
It's about molding the mind, giving the individual discipline, giving the individual the ability to look at things differently,
right,
giving the individual the ability to think outside the box, questioning. You get me?
Right.
That is the role of education. If you come to the listen, the universities are there to educate.
Right.
And I don't think any university really cares who comes there. Well, of course, you must be able to pay your way through.
Right.
As long as you are willing, and as long as you are willing to put yourself through the rigors of that training, you are welcome to any university.
Right.
You get me?
Right.
The university will equip you.
Right.
So, yes, they have a role to play. You get me? Yes, they have a role to play. And let me put it out there today. You can acquire free knowledge. We live in the internet age. There is a system called Coursera. There is EDX. You literally can learn courses universities offer for free.
For free. Really?
You get me?
What is it called again?
EDX.
Okay.
.edu.
Okay.
There is Coursera.edu. You go to Harvard has a whole place. You can Yale.
So you are saying, what the understanding here is that you're saying that you really can get on the internet, whatever. If you want to study business, get on the internet and study.
You know something?
Because we live in the internet age.
On Coursera.
Right.
The University of Pennsylvania Wharton School of Business actually put out there their first year MBA on Coursera for free.
Really?
At the moment, Duke University is offering 3 courses: data analysis, English composition, and how to argue.
Okay.
It's there either free. If you want a certificate, each is only $49.
Really?
Yes. One can literally gain knowledge. We live in times where knowledge is readily available.
So if you don't know, and if you are not engaged in business, and if you are not represented in here, then the problem is not the government.
No.
And the problem is not your teacher or your parent. The problem is really you.
It's you.
Because we live in an internet age where knowledge is out there.
Available.
We have 5 minutes. We have about 4 minutes. Okay. In a nutshell, put us all together and talk to somebody listening to us. We have this problem going on. How do we solve it? The church, the government, you as an individual.
Okay. To tell you the interesting truth, when I look at this data, one of the things as a black person that really struck me
interesting
was the fact that I look at the business facts and I was shocked to realize even here in Minnesota, there are more black firms than, apart from Caucasian-owned firms.
Right.
Blacks own more firms than any other group.
Wow, really?
Even nationally, more than any other group. And it struck me and I said, my God, then why is the story told the way it is? Why is the story such that as a black person you read such a thing and you are almost disappointed, as if we aren't doing anything? And as a pastor, what I know is that a person could be encouraged if he knows, if he or she knows that there is a narrative of success out there. Maybe as a pastor, my appeal to the world begin to tell the story the data is telling, and we may be blessed.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you.
God bless.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot. That was some vast knowledge. And you have to come back and continue with this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching Community Empowerment. With that said, we'll see you next week. Thank you and good night.